different types of English do we have?
English for tourism.
English for tourism, good. What else?
Science for
English for science and technology.
Medical science.
English for medical science.
legal,
Legal.
Técnico, médico,
Okay, so there are a lot of different types of English divisions. Okay, so if we get to this point, we get to the English for specific purposes, which in this case, the one that we're trying to understand is the one that is related to science and technology. Okay, very good. So English for specific purposes, and I have a question here. How is different from English as a second language? What could be the main difference?
the context,
The context? What?
The focus.
Okay.
vocabulary,
Vocabulary. What else?
Purpose.
like the reasons why.
What you're looking for, right? Okay. Now, who can tell me what could be the characteristics of a student of English for specific purposes?
He wants to learn more vocabulary about a specific thing.
Okay, you said something important. They want to learn more vocabulary. So we understand that it's someone that already has a certain level of English, right? Could be intermediate, pre-intermediate, or it could be like proficiency. I don't know. Okay, so good. So yes. So if it's a person that has a prior knowledge of language, what do you think the age of the person should be? A student that looks English for specific purposes. What kind of student would that be? A teenager? A kid?
College
Maybe a university student? What else?
person who has a degree.
A person with a degree? Okay, very good. So the age of the student, okay, is most of them are like grown-ups. Okay, very good. Any other characteristic that you could remember for a student for English for specific purposes?
Maybe they're going to a vocational or technical college.
Vocational, okay, very, and they require that new
Some
vocabulary.
specific careers. Maybe
Some
they are all
specific
together.
careers. Yes, we have a lot of students here at the institute that sometimes they show up and they say, you know what, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, whatever,
Yeah.
and or even politicians, and they say, I need a course because I'm going to a seminar, or I'm going to give a conference, I'm going to be a speaker, blah blah blah. So they speak English, but they need that technical,
Specific.
that specific vocabulary for that. Okay, so yes, okay. So like you said, okay, the purpose, okay, what you're looking for, what is it that you need, okay, very good. So like I already said, the age, it's important, and also like you already said, the abilities in their subject matter. I mean, it has to be someone that has been exposed to the topic. So like for example, what kind of people takes business classes? Businessmen, okay? People which is related to that area, okay? Accountants, financial directors, blah, 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 okay? What kind of people take English for medical purposes? Doctors, dentists, nurses, etc. Okay, so you need to have some kind of ability in the subject. You need to know the subject, okay? So, and that's very, very important, okay? Now, how can we define English for scientific purposes or English for science and technology? When you look at the definition, okay, it says that it's for specific needs, okay, in different scientific and technological fields. When you listen to that, I mean, like, what kind of fields do you imagine in science? Chemistry could be one. Physics. Biology.
Avionics.
Okay, what else? Math. Okay, very good. Okay, so there are a lot of different fields in which science could fit. Okay, and these students they require this. Okay, so two important things for these guys that they want to enroll in this is they need communication requirements and communication skills and reading comprehension. Do you remember your last TOEFL exam? Right? Yes. They tend to use a lot of scientific texts, right? So you need to know how to read, but not only to read, you need to understand, okay, comprehend. Okay, so if you're gonna have a student or who wants to learn English for science and technology, you need to make sure that the person can understand, because yes, they're gonna need to speak, but they're gonna need to understand what they're reading. Okay, please come in, because it's not only about reading, it's also about comprehension. They need to comprehend. Why? Why do you think they need this comprehension? In scientific journals or texts.
So they can improve their knowledge.
Exactly.
This
So they
is why
can.
they are there.
Exactly. So they can improve, or so they can get more ideas, or so they can like make more hypotheses or a new way to see that. Okay. Very.
See.
Very, very good. Excellent. Okay, very good. Now, once you start reading in this type of English, you're gonna find a lot of different words or new words. Are you familiar with cognates? Are you familiar to that? What is it? How can we define, like, in a simple way? Do you remember?
Similar words in our language.
Very
like
good.
English.
Exactly. Similar words in different languages. Okay? Very, very good. Okay, so we can have cognates and we can have also false cognates. Okay? So that can be tricky. Okay? So, a cognate. Can somebody give me an example of a cognate?
Special.
Special, okay, and that will be similar to what word in which language? For example, let's compare with Spanish, okay? Would be
It's similar to when you say especial.
especial. Any other?
Communication and comunicación.
Okay, very good. Any other?
Energy and
Energy. Okay, so very good. Okay, very, very good. So as you can see, this we can take for English for science and technology, or English for science purposes, we can take advantage of this, okay, cognates. Why? Because it makes easier. It's, if for example you see English and Chinese, do you think you're gonna find out of cognates? No. But however, if you check Spanish and English, you may find what, maybe 40% of the words could be cognates, maybe. Okay, so that's a good percentage. Okay, so this is very important because it helps you to link and to understand some of the texts that you're reading. I think that it's easier for a person that is reading a scientific journal than someone who is reading poetry. What do you think about that? What could be easier? For someone who doesn't speak, let's say someone that speaks 40% English, or that understands 40%. What could be easier? To understand poetry or a scientific journal?
scientific.
And why is that?
Because it has more cognates, and also the context is like, it's not literal, so you need the information, and if you have the background, you understand better, even if you don't grab the idea. I mean, you get the idea, even if it's not the whole text.
You get the idea, right? But in poetry, it could be
Sometimes reading in Spanish, we
sometimes not
understand.
even in Spanish. Yeah, that's true. And if you read like there are some authors that are very difficult to read, right? So it's difficult. Okay, so this is an advantage that we can take for English, for science and technology. Okay, so I have an exercise for you. I have some copies here, so I'm gonna give you this. And I want you to give me, please, what could be the word in Spanish for those that we have right there, okay? I think this is very easy. It's going to be very easy for you. You have one?
Can
Okay.
we write them down?
Yes, please, write it next to the word, please. Write the word in Spanish that you think is the one that fits. Thank you. Okay. So I think that's pretty easy for you. I know you're gonna finish in 1 minute. And then I'm gonna give you another with false cognates. And I think this is gonna be a little bit more difficult, but not that difficult to you. You're like very good teachers.
We write the word in Spanish.
You need to write a word. Wait. Wait.
In the Spanish, yes.
Spanish or German?
Oops, sorry. There you go. Okay, so I think I assume that you already finished that one.
The real one. Is the real one? The real one?
Sorry?
In the false cognates, do we have to write the real word or
Yes,
one that
the real
we
one.
misunderstand?
Yes, the real one. Okay. Or you need to give me the word that is similar in Spanish.
Okay.
For example, I'm gonna give you one example. For example, rope. Rope is very similar to a word in Spanish, which, okay, so in that way you need to do the rest, okay?
Okay. Terrific is very common.
It's very common,
I
yes.
learned one
Yes,
false
very,
cognate.
very.
Students usually say terrific,
Yes.
but it's
Yes. You know another they use very much? Eventually.
eventually.
Actually.
Actually.
Actually, they use it instead of nowadays. They say actually. Which one? Totally. Usually, because they say. Sorry, which one?
Principle. Yeah.
Main idea principle.
How do you say hey?
For example, we have time 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's right there. Okay, so let's see. Let's see how did it go. Let me see. So we have, well, I think the first one that I gave is quite easy. So it's family, center, or center, ingredient, center, radio, class, desert, magic, and gorilla. Okay, so I think that that's like a very good asset for you as teachers, or if you need to teach this type of English for science or technology, when you have the chance to do that. Some teachers, they get scared. They say, no, it's because I don't know anything about science. How am I going to teach for a doctor? How am I going to teach for an engineer? Don't worry, it's all related. It's all connected. I mean, it's vocabulary is language. Okay, so it shouldn't be a problem for you. Okay, so the next, the false ones. So, for example, for globe. Okay, lobo. In English. Balloon. Okay, very good. So pie. Yeah. Okay. Food. Rope. You already said. Rope. Okay. Clothes. Soap. Sopa. Soup. Or pasta. Yeah. Large. Largo. Okay. Exit. Exit. Good. That's a good one. And which one? Sorry. Okay. Hey. Wait. There is, right? Okay. Very, very good. Okay. So it's easy that you can get confused with those types of different false cognates. Okay. So do you remember that we were saying that there is like a division for English? So we said that we have English as a second language, like the top, okay? How can we define English as a second language? People, what kind of people study that?
Professionals.
Professionals.
Adults.
And what do they want? What's their main concern? What is it that they want?
They want to communicate with
They want to communicate.
That's
That's
right.
it. They don't want anything else, right?
Yes.
It's just they want to be able to communicate with some other human. Okay, that's all they want. Okay, very good. So they don't really care about sometimes about pronunciation and because it's something that they can improve, right? The thing is that they need to know how to read, they need to understand, and they need to speak. Okay, so that's like the general English we could say. Okay, and then from that we go to English for specific purposes, which could be divided in several divisions. For example, we have here the EAP. What do you think that stands for? English for what? For academic. I'm sorry. For academic purposes. What kind of student will take this class?
A student that wants to study in the US.
A student that wants to study in the US.
For a master's degree or PhD.
For a master's, okay, okay. People that are trying to get a degree, yes, very good. People that they want to start like a career in a college, whatever. Okay, so yes, we have English for the academic purposes. What about this one? What do you think it means? EOP.
English for objective.
Occupational, okay? English for occupational purposes. What kind of student will take this? Sorry? When they want to get a job. What kind of job?
Depends on the career they study.
Uh-huh. For example, someone who works at the airport.
Oh,
Yeah, they need to be like, they need a very specific training, right? Someone who's gonna work maybe,
in a hotel.
sorry?
In a hotel.
Okay, yes, very good, exactly,
Flight
okay,
attendants.
also, what else?
Flight attendants.
Flight attendants, why? Because yes, they need to communicate, yes, but they need to have very specific vocabulary, okay? Because maybe you know how to speak English, you know how to communicate, but you don't really know specific
In
terms.
a restaurant.
Restaurants, for example. Okay, for example, maybe if we take a look at all the vocabulary for a plane, maybe we only know like, I don't know, 10% or 20 maybe, like
Yes.
the wings and that's okay, because there are a lot of technical, yeah, there are a lot of technical parts of the plane, right? Or things like that, okay, occupational, okay, very good, which is very, very important, okay? What about this one? NP.
Medical.
Yes,
purposes.
medical purposes, okay, which is,
Surgery.
and it's kind of easy sometimes because a lot of the vocabulary for medical purposes has Latin or Greek roots, okay, very good. And that one? Science and technology. Now, when you read a text, in some scientific journal, what do you think that is the most used grammar structure that you see? You think present simple? Past simple?
Passive?
Passive voice, yes. The passive voice and passive structures, yes. And we're gonna see that in an exercise that I'm gonna give you. Okay, so can you go back to your team? Everybody go back to your team, please. So, how can we help a student that wants to learn English for medical or science purposes? How can we help that student? Well, we can start by being a little bit more on grammar structures like the passive voice, like you said, and passive structure. Okay, so I'm gonna give you this text. I'm gonna give you this one to you, and this one to you, this one to you, and what I want you to do is please identify as many passive structures or the passive voice as you can. Which this topic is it's not a topic that students like, right? The passive voice. They don't really like. They don't really enjoy. Text 1, text 3. There you go. text 3, text 1 for you. You can help your classmate if you want, okay? You can work as a team, okay? Identify as many passive voice structures or the passive voice as you can in that in the text that I just gave you. Take your time, take your time. Just to remember, how can we define the passive voice? Do you remember?
Verb be and the participle form.
And but
The
we
subject receives the action.
it's the opposite to the usual way, right?
Yeah.
Like the subject performs the action in this case.
The object receives, yeah.
Okay, very good. And when it comes to explaining the passive voice, we need to be very careful with students because they need to understand. Guys, how do you usually teach the passive voice? It's kind of difficult. Something that works for me is that I explain
The active.
the active voice first.
And then we
And then
move the
exactly, and
object.
then we just switch, right? That's one thing that works for me. I explain the active first, and then I go with the passive. Okay. In which other types of text can we find the passive voice?
For example, newspapers, headlines.
Newspapers, right? Yes, that's like very typical. Okay.
Emails, there are a lot of emails.
Emails as well.
It's very redundant use. I will send you the merchant will send business to
Business.
sending us products.
So it's like everywhere. Yeah, and sometimes the students they say, teacher, but I mean, who speaks like that? Well,
Yeah.
like we don't really speak like that, but we
But we do because in Spanish there are 3 kind of passive voices in Spanish, and we use them every day. 3 kinds.
3 times. Can you imagine?
Is possessed.
Okay, so